All right, ready to dive into this deep dive? Looks like we're tackling the 5-second rule today. You've sent over a whole bunch of excerpts from Mel Robbins' book.
Yeah. Seems like you're ready to break free from feeling stuck, huh?
Definitely. That feeling of hitting the snooze button one too many times, been there?
Well, that's Mel Robbins' whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Her story is really where the 5-second rule comes from.
Oh, totally. Feeling stuck, then bam! That rocket launch commercial changes everything.
That's such a great example of how our brains work. The countdown, the rocket taking off something, clicked for her.
So it's like not about suddenly having more willpower, but tapping into something almost primal.
Exactly. That 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 became her way of short-circuiting that hesitation, that little voice we all have that says, just 5 more minutes.
Instead of letting fear take over, it's like she's giving her brain a direct command.
It's all about the prefrontal cortex, you see, the part of your brain that makes decisions. The 5-second rule is like activating it before the doubts can even form.
So it's like hitting go before you can overthink it.
Think of your prefrontal cortex like the CEO of your brain. It's trying to do what's best, but it gets bogged down by fear, uncertainty.
Right, Robbins calls it the hesitation loop, getting stuck in our own heads.
And the cool thing is the 5-second rule isn't just about getting out of bed. It's about any time you have an instinct, a flash of what if, and turning it into action.
Like the Frappuccino. Who would thought a blended coffee drink would become so huge?
Right. It started with a Starbucks manager in Santa Monica, heat wave hitting, sales dipping, and he just had this gut feeling.
What if he had hesitated?
Exactly. That's what's so powerful about this. It's about those small, everyday instincts we have and acting on them before our inner critic chimes in.
What if Mel Robbins had hit snooze? What if the Frappuccino guy had said, nah, that's silly?
We all have this instinct to act, this ability to see possibilities. The 5-second rule just gives us the tools to actually use it.
It's crazy, right? How one tiny decision, one instinct can change things so much. But what about when it's fear holding us back? Mel Robbins talks about using the 5-second rule with her fear of flying.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of
Yeah.
people can relate to that. And it's interesting how she actually reframes fear as excitement.
Because they both kind of feel the same, don't they? That nervous energy.
Yeah, same physical response in your body racing hard, those butterflies. It's not about getting rid of fear, but changing how you see it.
Instead of freaking out, you use it.
Exactly. She uses those feelings as fuel.
Yeah.
She talks about like anchoring it to a positive image, picturing herself on vacation, feeling the sand, that kind of thing.
So it's like telling your brain, this isn't panic, this is getting ready for something good.
Right. And this is where the 5-second rule comes in with procrastination too.
Ah, procrastination, my specialty. But she talks about there being a good kind of procrastination. That's a new one.
Yeah. We think of it like the enemy, right? But sometimes, especially with creative stuff, it can be super helpful.
Okay, now I gotta hear this. There's this good procrastination.
Think about a time you got stuck on something, then the answer just hits you while you're like out for a walk or doing dishes. Productive procrastination.
You mean taking a break isn't always a bad thing? My mind blown. Oh,
Exactly. Our brains still work on stuff in the background. It's not about avoiding work completely, but realizing that stepping away can give you a fresh perspective.
so how do I know if I'm productively procrastinating or just, slacking? Robbins talks about this PhD student, Mark, right?
Yeah, Mark, super smart guy, but always putting things off to the last minute, stressed out, anxious. That's where the 5-second rule comes in. Not to just power through, but to break that procrastination cycle.
So you're stuck, you feel overwhelmed, you just start that countdown and go. Seems too easy.
And this is where just a small shift can change everything Robbins says. To ask yourself, what would the future you do?
Ooh, I like that. Playing pretend with your best self.
Yeah. It's about making choices that get you closer to your goals. And sometimes that takes a bit of, a leap of faith, even if it feels scary.
That courage to actually take action, that seems to be a big part of this whole thing, huh?
It's true, though. Sometimes the hardest part, just starting. Like
Yeah.
actually taking that first step.
Robbins talks about this idea of everyday courage, those small decisions that add up to big change.
Yeah. And she had that great story about the Cisco engineer, right?
Yeah.
The one who used the 5-second rule to, like, come out of his shell a bit.
Exactly. He was at one of her talks, felt inspired. Then later he's walking with his wife and sees Mel Robbins and her husband.
Uh-oh, putting it to the test in real time.
Right. And he's thinking, should I say hi? Should I not? That inner voice starts going.
Totally. What if he'd overthought it? What if he'd chickened out?
But then, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, he goes up to them, introduces himself, and they end up having this awesome conversation. All because he pushed past that initial hesitation. See, courage isn't always some big dramatic thing.
This reminds me of Brian Little's work on free traits. We have some traits that are kind of fixed, but we can choose to act out of character for things that really matter to us.
So even if you're naturally shy, you can still choose to be more outgoing if the situation calls for it.
Right. We're more flexible than we think. Like Robbins talks about this guy, Todd, in Australia. Super into physical education, but felt pressure to do something more traditional.
Oh no, I know that feeling, living someone else's dream.
He ends up in this law and business program, which he hates. But for years, he's too scared to disappoint his parents to change.
Ooh, tough spot. So what snapped him out of it?
He's sitting in advanced taxation law. How boring does that sound? And it hits him. Time for a new plan. He gets up in the middle of class, unenrolls, and drives 2 hours to apply for the physical education program. Talk about going for it.
That's incredible. Sometimes you just gotta say screw it and follow your gut.
It's about those tough conversations, setting boundaries, all that. But sometimes those are the things that make life more real, you know?
Totally. And it makes you think about those moments like Mel Robbins' friend who passed away. He had texted her and Josh just out of the blue, telling them how much their friendship meant.
And then, hours later,
Yeah.
he was gone. It makes you realize how precious time is.
We put things off. Oh, I'll tell them later. But later isn't always guaranteed.
Robin's own dad, when he had that brain aneurysm, he said he had 0 regrets. He lived his life, followed his passions, had a loving family.
It really makes you think, huh, what's truly important?
We get so caught up in the day-to-day, we forget to appreciate the people we love, to actually say the things.
It all comes back to that courage, right? To really be present, to take those risks, even if it's scary.
Because those 5 seconds of courage could change everything.
It's not just about productivity or whatever. It's about living a life with no regrets. Taking those chances, big or small, and seeing where they lead. That's the real power of the 5-second rule.